And I would say the number one piece of advice is like determining how you're going to provide value. So whether that's value to your clients, once you actually get them, and the other is how you're going to provide value to your audience and build your influence. There is so much money to be made when you build your influence, and part of creating that trust in the marketplace is providing value and showing them who you are and that you intimately understand their problems and that you have a well thought out solution. So how are you going to provide value and how are you going to communicate that value? One of the biggest missing links to success.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Jessica Yarbrough. And it's a quick introduction to Jessica. So graduated in international business, and then went to started a startup, and then did that for a period of time. Got burned out and walked away for a period of time, and then in her own words, went through the Eat, Pray, Love journey for about 4 years. Did yoga teaching, consulting in China. Went to Buddhist temples, and then came back to the U.S. Had a kid, and then went on to building a startup while raising a kid. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Jessica.
Thanks for that summary, Devin.
Absolutely. So I just took a much longer journey and condensed it into the 30-second version of it. So Why don't we rewind it a bit and unpack it? So tell us a little bit about your journey, how it got started, going to college, getting an international business degree.
Yeah. So, I mean, my background was in business. I started managing companies really young. I always had an interest in other cultures. And of course, I went to college back in the day before, we were the global economy that we are now. And I was drawn to international business because, again, I saw that was the future. So I studied international business. I, studied Spanish. I went to university in Spain. And that started my initial journey of living abroad. Definitely sparked a passion for travel. So that was that whole college journey.
No, sounds like it was definitely a great journey. So now you came out of college after having done some of that, and I think your kind of initial entrance into the working world, so to speak, is you started a startup. Is that right?
Well, I was managing companies as young as 16. So that was my first company I managed was 16. And so I managed 3 companies before I actually started a startup company. And what happened is I had written a business plan in college for an international company, but I lacked the funds to start it up. Well, it happened to be about 6 months after I graduated that I saw an advertisement looking for a marketing professional for the very same concept for a startup that I had wrote, which, if you believe in destiny, I certainly do. The man had the exact same plan, except for, well, one, he had a background and had been in the space building companies before, but he also had the financial backing. So and he happened to be in San Diego. So it was pretty magical, actually. And we started that company and literally walked in. We didn't even have computers, anything. So when I say we built it from the ground up, we literally built it from the ground up. And expanded into 7 countries in the first year. And it was an amazing journey because I will say that it taught me, startup is all about moving fast. So it definitely showed me what was possible, that if I really was determined to make things happen in a very shortened time frame, that I could make it happen. And it was beautiful to work with a group of people and take something that was really a piece of paper, which is a business plan, and build an entire company. So that was amazing and something I'm grateful to have experienced in my 20s. But doing all that, I feel like there was a lot of soul searching I still needed to do. I was young and I was, doing doing this startup company, and I got burned out. And I believe in following my gut and trusting in the divine unfolding of my life. And I took a trip to Thailand on vacation. I had my spiritual awakening there, and
So now just or one quick thing
yeah,
just before you get too far
yeah,
into
yeah,
the eat, pray, love
yeah,
portion of the
yeah,
journey, and I like how you describe it. So you were doing the startup going well,
yes,
going well. How did you decide, hey, I'm burned out, or how did you come to that conclusion? 'Cause I think people get to that point, but then
yeah.
they're worried about, how do I take off, or how do I change my position, or what do I do, or kind of how does that all go? So how did you kind of, first of all,
Goes
kind of how
there.
did you figure out that you were burned out, and how did, then second of all, how did you figure out what to do once you were, or figured that out?
Well, those are great questions. Well, I felt torn, to be honest, because on one hand, I really loved what I was doing. But if any of your listeners can relate, if you're going to a job and you feel exhausted and you feel like there's more, and I believe it starts with like a quiet whisper and then it turns into a loud scream. And so for me, I knew I had potential, and I knew that I was meant to go on some big journey. I'd already had a taste of it living in Spain, and had traveled around Europe, but there was something more. And I will tell you, around this time was when I had discovered yoga, and I feel like that really opened me up. Kind of started to chisel away at the layers, and so even when I went on vacation, I met a friend. So ironically, I met my friend from Spain and Thailand. He was from Angola, Africa, and he had built his whole business by going to Asia. This is back in the day before Alibaba or anything, and shipping goods over. So part of that was like, hey, I want to go meet him and see what he's doing and follow him around Bangkok for a few days, which was cool, and see if I wanted to do that. Because again, I saw this is where the future was going. But in that time, I also was able to just get away and get quiet. I was on vacation, and I feel like we're so attached to our phones and we never really get a chance to be quiet. And the spiritual teacher Ram Dass says, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. And that's what happened for me there. I just got away, and I saw a different way of being, and I saw other opportunities. And while I didn't follow in my friends' footsteps of doing, this shipping business, I did see other ways, and I knew that this was my chance. I was young. I didn't have children. I wasn't married. And I also believed in myself. I was like, if I can do this, I know there's so many other opportunities for me in this life. And so it wasn't the easiest path. The easiest path would be to stay exactly where I was, to grow with the company, even whether the company succeeded or not, it didn't matter. I could go to another company. And I saw my path laid out very clear, exactly what my life would look like. But for the first time on vacation, I saw a second path. It was like, it's literally like suddenly a fork in the road appeared, and there was potential. And I was less certain. I didn't know where that path was going to lead me. And this may sound super cheesy, but I knew that there was greater self-love down this other path. And I feel like that is what I wanted to journey. I wanted to find who I could become, and this deeper sense of self, and then what businesses could emerge from that. And so I made the most empowering decision of my life, which was a decision that I made without discussing with anyone. I didn't survey my parents, my family, my friends, and thank goodness I didn't, because after I made my decision, they all thought I was bananas. You're crazy. Why are you doing this? You have stability. This is what you wanted. And guess what? I did want it. I dreamt the company. I wrote the plan. It is what I wanted, but it wasn't everything that I wanted. And I trusted that there was more. And so I walked away. I put my notice. I left 30 days later the country with literally 14 pounds of stuff on my back. I hadn't even read Eat, Pray, Love yet. I just thought it was funny because I think it was coming out, or I think she wrote it around that same time. And I went on a 4-year journey. And it was amazing, full of twists and turns and ahas and awakenings. And I'm so thankful because I will have endless experiences and stories to cherish for the rest of my life.
Now, how did you, or so did, when you left, a couple of questions, when you exited the company, you just walk away, give the ownership over? Did you maintain your
Yes.
ownership, or how did that
No.
work?
I cut clean. I cut clean.
Now, so you cut clean. So now, I could understand the family's angst of it didn't sound like, and you can certainly fill in the gaps. So there wasn't a lot of plan other than knew that you needed to go and take a break. You're burned out to go discover yourself, which all makes sense.
Yeah.
But was there a plan as to how you are going to support yourself or where you were going to go, or you just took off on a journey and then when you
Yeah.
reached the end of the 4 years, you said, okay, I'm done, and now we'll go back to real world? Or kind of how did you go about doing that?
So there was no plan. In fact, I didn't even realize because I bought a one-way ticket to Asia, and when I arrived, I had to buy a ticket back because they wouldn't let me in the country. You have to have a round trip ticket. You can change your return, but I literally bought a one-way ticket. I had some savings. I was like, let's see where this goes, and I trusted that there would be opportunities that would open, and they did. So I was able to make money on my journey, and it took me a couple different ways until I was realized what I wanted to do, but I just trusted in the process. It's something I needed to do. And was it scary? Yes. Was it overwhelming at times? Absolutely. But I needed to do it, and I had to trust that.
So you did that for I think over 4 years, and you
4 years.
did yoga for a period of time and did some consulting and other
Yes.
things. And so you get towards the end of that, and how did you figure out that you had experienced what you need to experience, or you discovered yourself, or you're at the end of that portion of the journey? Kind of how did you come to that
Yeah.
realization? Because 4 years is a pretty good time to do that. So how did you kind of figure out that you were at a journey's end on that portion of the journey?
Well, I got pregnant with my daughter. I had really thought at this point that I was kind of done with the business world. I had some other visions. I was like, oh, I'll start a yoga school. I'll do some different things. It was still business related, but, I didn't think I would go back into consulting. But when I did that, I had a realization, and, did I want to live kind of this gypsy lifestyle with uncertainty? No. As soon as I got pregnant, I was like, okay, I know that I want to create certainty and stability. And I also want to do it on my own terms. So at this time, I remember my parents begging me, please go get a job, go get a marketing job. You need to, all the stuff you need to provide. You have a child, all the stuff. And I could have done that, and I did not want to do it. So what I did is I started taking some marketing work, some done for you kind of projects. And I remember, and this is a vulnerable moment for your listeners, I remember my daughter being an infant. I was doing some consulting work. She was crying. I think I walked outside crying because I was overwhelmed. If you have a newborn, sometimes you just got to set them down in the crib and just walk outside or in the bassinet or whatever. And I remember looking out to the sky and crying and saying, listen, God, I need some guidance here. If this is the will, if this is my path, I need, show me. And 1 week later, I landed my first $40,000 client. And that was huge at the time. My daughter is 9 now, or almost 9. So this was huge at the time for me because it was validation. I literally asked, and the universe was like, this is your path. Boom. And I got another client because I did great work. I got referrals, and, eventually that didn't feel very fulfilling in terms of being the woman behind the computer making campaigns happen. And I was making money, and I had a lot of people saying, hey, can you teach us how to do this? And at heart, I'm a teacher. That's why I was a yoga teacher. I love holding that space for people. And I transitioned into, instead of doing everything for them, showing people how to do it on their own and be very successful, even if they're not a marketer.
No, it makes perfect sense. So it sounds like, maybe just one, or circling back, just rewinding a little bit. So when you settled on, okay, hey, I have a kid, necessitates having a bit of stability and also having an income, and or tends to, or have you reassess life a bit. So you do that. Now, when you were getting into it, did you have an idea this is the direction of a business that you wanted to go, and you'd already had that in mind, or was it kind of more opportunistic, or kind of how did you settle in on that? Because it sounds like I'll just pause there. And how did you settle in on that?
Well, I've always been really good at marketing. And even my mom told me, you have an ability to make something out of nothing. You can find gold in any situation. And every company I'd ever managed or consulted or worked in, I'd always found, gone in there and fixed things immediately and generated a bunch of cash flow, gave them ideas for new products and services. It was a gift. So that is something. And one, by the way, my mom, who was a business person, was like, well, why are you wasting your years traveling and teaching yoga? You've got this brilliant mind. And so she was happy when I did this, but that was a natural progression for me to go right back into it. But I will say I was at rock bottom. I had, no following. I didn't have I had been out of the game, if you will, for 4 years, and in marketing, a lot changes, especially digital marketing, the emergence of that. And so I had a lot to learn, and I was on my own in terms of as a single mother. So I always tell people, look, if I can do it, you can do it. You have to, be committed and be willing to put in the work, but you can be wildly successful. And I think for me, I saw the vision, and I knew that if I played the long game, I would be successful. Easy would be get a job, probably could have gotten a job making close to six figures even back then. Marketing, I could have played that game, but I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to have freedom. I wanted to set my own hours. We do 5 to 6 weeks of vacation a year. My daughter's been literally all over the world. And I knew that if I took a traditional job, that would be really challenging. And I also knew that I would hit a limit in how much money I could make. And I knew that the long game was remove those limits, be in control of your own time and financial freedom.
No, that makes perfect sense. Now you set out and you have that background, have the experience, come back up to speed after being out for about 4 years. Sounds like you pivoted a bit from doing it all to training people how to do it. So now
Yes.
kind of walk us through, how is the business, what period of time did this occur, and kind of where's the business evolved to today, or kind of where's it at today?
Yeah, so I would say 7 years ago, I pivoted. I only did the Done For You for a couple years. And today it's a 7-figure company. And we primarily help those who were former executives, whether they were director level VP or a lot of C-suite that I work with as well, that now want to translate that into high value coaching, consulting, training companies. So I specialize in the ultra high end market. My clients will come to me who that want to sell $150,000 packages, 180, or even if they're marketing to individuals who are self-pay, they want to charge, whether it's even self-pay career coaching for 25,000 or self-pay executive coaching for 40,000. So that's where I'm primarily working with executive leadership, career, business strategist, and primarily selling mostly B2B, some high net worth B2C.
No, makes sense. Now you said it was over a period of 7 years. So when you made
Yes.
that pivot or transition, was that easy? You just took all the pre-existing clients and you were a 7-figure business from the get-go,
No.
or how did you build that up, or how did that go? Because it's the way it sounds is an overnight success, but I'm sure
It's
there's
donut.
a bit more to that journey. So kind of fill that in for us.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long, winding road, as it is for most quote unquote overnight successes. And so, I had to find my ideal clients. And originally, I wasn't working with those high level executives. That took me time to find that as an ideal client. Originally, I was marketing on Facebook. I completely pulled out of there. I went all in on LinkedIn. Because that is where the best clients are, in my opinion. And I also started working with an older clientele. When I was younger, I was probably marketing more to those people. As well as I got older, I started marketing to older people. So it was an evolution. It really was. And I will say at first, I was even selling smaller wins, if you will, like shorter term engagement, smaller wins. And I was on a path of launching all the time. I had lots of different offers. Like, it was exhausting. And I remember I took my daughter to Europe for a month and I quit selling. I was like, all right, I need to go back to the drawing board because this is not sustainable. It's not what I want. I was making money, but it wasn't as scalable as I wanted from a time, energy, effort perspective. And I said, what do I do? And what do I really want to do? And what do I really want to do well? And I went all in on the one thing, which was helping people grow their expert authority and really focus in this high caliber market. And I repositioned myself, went all in on that, and scaled it. And that quote that I came across years ago when I made this transition, was by Steve Jobs: with focus and simplicity, you can move mountains. And so that quote changed my life. And anytime I look at any strategy, I ask, is it focused? Is it simplified? Is it in alignment with how I want my life to be designed? Or am I creating something that's going to make me money and I'm going to resent it down the road because it's more work? So I'm very much about, what do I want my life to look like? How am I going to design a business model that's congruent with my values?
Makes perfect sense. So So now as you're, we've caught a bit up to the present day of your journey.
Yes.
Maybe the one other question before I dive to the last two questions I always ask
Yeah.
the end of each episode. But before that, so now kind of built it, grown it, figured out where to take it, and otherwise, found that niche or that success point. So where do you see the next 6 to 12 months kind of going for you guys? What's the plan, and where are things headed?
It's the same. I mean, right now business is doing well. I'm happy with where it's at. So we're going to continue doing what we're doing.
Well, it's a good path to be on if you're going in a good direction. Just continue forward, and sounds like a great plan. So now with that, I will ask the two questions I always ask at the end
Yes.
of each episode. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
The worst business decision I made was trying to outsource too soon. So, when I first got some wins, made a couple six figures, I was like, yes, let's go. And I see this with coaches and consultants all the time. And so I outsourced a bunch of things too soon, trying to grow too fast. And it just burned through a lot of money, and I'm not a big believer in a lot of agencies. I believe in like it's better to take it in house for a lot of activities. And so for me, that was a big mistake. That was costly. And the thing is, you get that taste, and then you want to grow, and you see these overnight successes, and you want that business, but success does take time. And so when I pivoted to, okay, let me focus on really serving the clients that I have, instead of trying to outsource and grow so fast, and really focus on getting them huge results, then the demand skyrocketed for my brand, the cash flow injected, and then I could actually bring some of this stuff in house. So it was just a journey, and having to learn those lessons.
Well, no, and that's always one. I mean, I think outsourcing is an enticing. Sometimes it can work out well, and depending on if you do it right, the right stage of the company, and you understand
Yes.
what you're doing. But by the same token, if you outsource and you have people that either whether it's manufacturing products, people, assistants, and everything else, and if you don't know what you're getting yourself into or where the people are at, and a lot of times, if they're located different thing, it introduces a lot of different variables that you may not be ready for, or may not fully understand on the front end. So I definitely get easy to make that mistake, but a great one to learn from.
And the agencies too, a lot of them are promising the world, and you get in there and you're just a number. So it's like, we're going to do all these things for you. And it's very different than and it takes forever. It's like their time delays, everything. It's just, I don't know. It wasn't the best experience. And I kind of had that over and over and over again. And again, entrepreneurship is a learning journey. And sometimes the mistakes are costly, but they're part of the journey.
Nope, I couldn't agree more. So now we're going to jump to the second question, which is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
That's a great question. I would say the number one piece of advice is like determining how you're going to provide value. So whether that's value to your clients, once you actually get them, and the other is how you're going to provide value to your audience and build your influence. There is so much money to be made when you build your influence, and part of creating that trust in the marketplace is providing value and showing them who you are, and that you intimately understand their problems, and that you have a well thought out solution. So how are you going to provide value, and how are you going to communicate that value? One of the biggest missing links to success.
Makes perfect sense. I think that's a great piece of advice and great takeaway. So, well, now as we're wrapping up, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they
Sure.
want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Well, definitely follow me on LinkedIn. Hit me up, let me know, send me a DM, let me know you heard me on the show. You can also, I put out daily content there. You can also follow me on YouTube, and go to my website, jessicayarbrough.com. There's some amazing free resources there.
Awesome. We'll definitely encourage everybody to reach out, connect, support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Jessica, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on a past podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com. apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, help us to share these journeys with even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else along your journey, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Jessica, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks so much.